Alright, now what you're going to want to do is create the UI of the game. So this part is going to consist of 4 things: the player stats, the enemy stats, the dialogue text, and the buttons. So first thing you're going to want to do is let's just create the dialogue text. So go into UI, under your plane, and click text. Now make sure it's regular text, not TextMesh Pro. Also want to create 2 empties. First, let's create an empty, and let's call it player stats. And another one you're going to want to be calling enemy stats. Now, under player stats and enemy stats, you're going to be creating 2 texts as children of them. Very simple stuff overall. You can see now in the bottom right that this says new text, and so that's actually for all 4 of them. So if we go here, we can actually move these, and you can see in the bottom left it'll also move. And that's all it takes. Very simple stuff overall. Now you're going to want to make 2 different scripts. First of all, for the stats of the characters. Now once you have whatever coding software you have open, you're going to first want to add using Unity Engine.ui, which will allow you to use the text object. Now all of this is unnecessary, so we can have that deleted. And so let's make 2 things: a public text health and public text magic. Now we're going to want functions for the other scripts to call. It's going to end up looking like this. You have a function to change both health and magic, and you have a function to change health and magic. Now your player stats object already has the stats UI script, and you're going to want to drag in the player health and the player magic texts onto where it says health and magic. And you're also going to want to add the stats UI script onto your enemy stats, and do the same thing with the enemy. You're also going to need a more simple script for your dialogue text. So once again, create a new script. Let's call it dialogue UI. Now the code for this is very simple. The only real difference is that we are only going to have 1 text, and instead of the set dialogue receiving monster stats, it's going to receive another text. So we're just going to set the dialogue text equal to text. And now just drag the dialogue text onto DLG. Now finally we're going to need 2 things. We're going to need a attack button and a magic button. Now to change the text on the button, all you have to do is open it up and go to text on that one. Change it to attack. And maybe for this one, magic. And that's going to be all for now for the UI. Now let's go back to the battling script. Now you should have all this done, and so we're going to add some more stuff onto this. We're now going to be creating 2 objects of the monster stats class. We're also going to need objects of the UIs. We're going to want the stats to be components of player and enemy. This is what it should look like. Very simple stuff overall. Now before we get into anything else, we're going to want to create an enumeration called GameState. So public enum GameState with multiple different types of states. I'm going to call them start, player turn, enemy turn, and end. After you make the game state, you're going to want to make an object of the game state. So, game state, state. And before anything else, set state equal to game state dot start. Now that that's done, we can continue with the rest of the turn-based combat. First things first, who goes first? Well, the person with the higher speed. Now, this isn't going to be the only thing that happens here, but this is just a placeholder for now. So now we're going to make a new function called attack. Now make sure this is public because it will be called by the buttons. Now we're going to be making a function. We're now going to be making the attack function. Make sure it's public because it'll be called by the button. So now that that's done, we're going to be making it so that you actually take damage. So all this is going to do is set the health equal to whatever it is minus the damage. So health minus equals damage. Very simple. But if it's under 0, we're going to want it to set to 0. But now how do we know if the battle is over? Well, in order to do that, let's actually make this into a bool returning function. Simple enough. So if the attack happens on the player's turn, that means the enemy takes damage. So if is dead is true, that means the game is over. And so if it's the enemy's turn, that means the player takes damage. So same thing here. We actually want the characters to be missing sometimes. So what we're going to do is say if player stats dot accuracy is greater than random dot range from 1 to 100. In this case, it's exclusive, so 101. Then the attack will happen. And so what happens in the enemy turn exactly? Well, we're actually going to want to make a function for that. Actually here, we're going to be wanting to set the game state equal to enemy turn. So, going back to monster stats, let's actually make a healing function. We want to make sure that we're using up magic. Magic minus equals 15. The enemy will actually only want to be able to use magic if it has enough magic. Now, let's make a magic function. And now here we can actually call the magic function now. And now that we have the enemy turn finished, we can go over here into attack and call enemy turn. As well as here. Now, one thing we're missing is the game over. Now we can call that function. Now all that's left is the UI. So, at the end of attack, and at the end of magic, you're going to be wanting to change all. Now all that's left is the actual dialogue text box. And so for the attack, we're actually going to want to add if it hits or it misses. And here, update the dialogue. As well as here. And finally tell the player who wins. And finally we're done. And finally here you're going to want to add the UIs. And that's it. Your code should be working now.